Hi, this is Kevin Conroy, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Welcome to Back Issue Classics, here inside the pull bag. TFG1 Mike brings in a variety of hosts to cover many comics. We review stuff from DC, Marvel, IDW, Image, Zenescope, and more. So open your ears to hear our discussions on comics you might not have known about. It's all here inside the pull bag with Back Issue Classics.
Forget it. Batman is dead.
Hello and welcome to the Pullbag's third annual Batman month. Okay, technically we missed last year, but you get the point. We're back. I am, of course, TFG and Mike. Joining me to continue the Batman Beyond 2015 series coverage is JT from Saskatoon. Hello, sir.
How you doing?
I'm doing.
You doing?
How you doing? Yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing that is not present in the 2015 Batman Beyond series because Max was there in the very beginning in Brave New Worlds when we did that way back when, earlier this year in 2017, but there was no Dana, there was no 10, there was no nothing. It was like, come on. But anyway, we are here to continue Batman month here in the month of May 2017 for the pull bag. We are wrapping up the Batman Beyond 2015 coverage with the final storyline, Wired for Death. This covers issues 12 through 16 of the series. Issue 16 was the finale of the series, and then last year in 2016 they rebooted with Batman Beyond Rebirth, which we will talk about next week. But this arc was pretty damn good.
Yeah, we'll sum it up at the end, but yeah, I've really enjoyed this series. Honestly, just to get it right off my chest right now, the only thing I did not like about this final arc was Rewire, and it's such a nitpicky thing for me, but his design is just so dumb. But I don't like Rewire's design, like his costume. Mm-hmm. It's just so, to me, it's just like, why?
Okay, well, for those that don't know, or for those that have not listened to the coverage we did for the Kyle Higgins Batman Beyond run, which Kyle Higgins is the one that created the character of Rewire when they were still actually paying attention to the DC animated universe in the comics, and it was originally Davis Dusk, and in this series, it's not Davis Dusk. And I love that. I love that they basically pulled a switcheroo with the timeline and the time travel and all that stuff and everything else. Really quick, we're going to talk about the 5 covers for this series. I was so pissed when issue 12 came out because I'm like, wait, he's dead. How is he supposed to be back? Because you know how solicitations are. They give you a little blurb, Bruce Wayne is back, but they don't give you how or why or whatever else. And when we get into talking about issue 12 here in a minute, we'll find out that it's actually a flashback. But issue 12's cover is old Bruce with the cane, basically looking over his shoulder, and in front of him is the Batman Beyond suit. I absolutely love that cover.
Yeah, no, it's a great cover, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely... let's see, who did the art on that cover? I'm just looking it up. I'm just looking on Comic Vine here.
Yeah, I thought it was. It's Philip Tan, I think.
Philip Tan did the interior art. The cover's done by Elmer Santos.
Okay, yeah. Did an amazing job with this. It's very Batman Beyond-ish.
And you can feel like that's Kevin Conroy's Bruce Wayne.
Absolutely.
The hard eye over the shoulder.
Absolutely.
It's kind of throws you back to like the first episode of the series, like the animated series, like Rebirth, where Terry comes. Sorry, that was my cell. Terry comes up around the corner, almost runs over Bruce, and it's just that look of just like, oh, jeez, really?
Mm-hmm.
And I love the cover, and as we get into it, I love the...
Well, before we get in, I want to talk about all the covers before we get too far into the actual comics, but issue 13, we've got an all-yellow cover because it's Rewire with the Batman Beyond suit inside of himself. This was a very telling cover. Like, I kind of figured it out. I didn't really figure it out, but after rereading this 2 or 3 different times before we did this recording, I kind of figured it out a little bit earlier than probably most people would, that basically Terry's alive, Terry is Rewire, not Davis Dusk. And I love, just going back this morning before we recorded this, and rereading through these, and I'm like, wow, that cover is absolutely amazing, and it basically tells you, hey, look, you know, I'm not too thrilled. Did you have any thoughts on 13?
13, yeah, cover? No, I agree with you. It's a very striking cover. I do like how, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Rewire's design, and that's just a very nitpicky thing on my part. But I do love this cover, like, you know, Rewire sitting there kind of like, you know, come on, and it's like the black parts are like a mirror, and Batman's kind of caught in that reflection like that. I really like that. I'd say out of these 5 covers, honestly, I think my favorite cover is 14. That's
my least one. I don't like 14.
You know, it's just yeah. Well, I mean, 14 is Rewire and Batman Beyond in struggling with each other with the lightning effects and the batarangs and
spellbinder effects. Yeah.
The swirl behind it.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't guess Spellbinder being involved.
Oh, no, I knew As soon as I saw this cover for 14 and I saw the swirly, I knew, because Spellbinder has always been a Batman Beyond villain, so I knew exactly, you know. My favorites, okay, outside of 12 and 13, my favorites are 15 and 16, because 15 is Spellbinder with his hand, and you see Terry and Tim, you know, battling in the little globe inside of his hand. And then 16 is basically Tim Drake in plain clothes, you know,
heading off into the sunset.
Heading off into the sunset, but it has the juxtaposition of the Batman Beyond logo as his shadow. And all 5 of these covers are really cool. Like I said, 14 is my least favorite, but the rest of them I absolutely love. I can look at these all day long. When it comes to the actual stories, we'll get into issue 12, which is the first one here. We start with the flashback to when Terry was actually still alive before Bruce sent him back to the future. I mean, the past.
Well, yeah, this is years before the cyborg invasion. I do like that first kind of 2-page establishing shot of the Batcave, and you see kind of on the left side of the page is the like the carousel of Batmobiles. There's even kind of one. It's the 69. It's the Adam West Batmobile.
66, not 69.
That's what I meant. Anyway, I'm not Dodd. I'm not that obsessed with such numbers.
Hey, you got to get it right, dude.
Yeah. I mean, he would own that mistake. I don't. So
yeah, well.
Anyway, it's the Adam West Batmobile, which is, you know, my favorite Batmobile for many reasons. And just I love the kind of you look up over in the back is like the pod with the different costumes, and then you know, I like it. It's much more. This Batcave is much more put together and looks like more of a secret headquarters ish versus the animated series version of this cave underneath the manor with, like, there's a giant computer over here and there's some, you know, costume caskets over here. It's not as minimalist as the animated series.
Yeah.
And you know, you see Bruce is PO'd at Terry for you know, kind of adding his own kind of case files to the Bat computer, and it hasn't been that long since Terry's been Batman, and Bruce is just he's got a hair up his butt about something.
Right, and we don't really know what this is, even though we should, but this takes place in the original timeline where Tim disappeared from.
Yeah.
So that's what this whole thing is. What I love about this opening shot where Barbara tells him Terry meant no harm, Bruce, and Bruce says, he walks away and says, "Come on, Ace." I love the art for Bruce and Ace. Bruce is almost all the way in shadow, and Ace, because of the way the Batcave is, now Ace's collar is normally brown. The actual color of the collar is normally brown, but usually when anyone's in the Batcave, everything has to turn purple-ish. Obviously, this here is not purplish, but that's what they established in the animated series. And I just absolutely love that look of Bruce and Ace walking away.
Oh, it's good. This is, like I said, this is, again, with the time travel, the timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly shenanigans involved here. This is prior to, Terry disappearing, prior to the cyborg invasion. But again,
Tim disappeared. That's the mystery. Tim disappeared.
Terry disappeared as well. But this is the new version of Terry's past, because you think of it in terms of Back to the Future. This is the revised version in 1985, where George McFly isn't a wimp. He's an accomplished author and professor at university. So this is it's similar but different. And I'm not. Oh God, I've gone cross-eyed. So moving on. Again, it's just this flashback that Terry's. Why is he so pissed off? And Barbara's because Tim disappeared and he was the one that was going to maybe replace Bruce because he was so good at it. And this probably in this issue, the only nitpick about this issue is this is the past, and Barbara's older and she's still got the red hair, and then we go to the next page and it's straight up. It's
gray hair Barb.
Yeah, it's Commissioner Gordon version 2. And that's the only time we see this version of Barbara, even though that's implied that this is what she looks like now that Drake's in the suit.
Yeah. And what I love about this is it's basically her narrating this whole issue, at least up to this point, and I love that they brought over the purple and yellow from the Batgirl series for her inner monologue, and I just absolutely love that. I think that's great. And having, basically having the story be that they're looking for these answers to what happened. And, and Tim is looking for Rewire, and he finds him. Now, I like Rewire. I enjoy this version of Rewire more because I know what it's going to be because of the whole timeline shift. In the beginning, you're right, I wasn't too thrilled. I don't mind Kyle Higgins introducing a new villain, but the reveal of the villain and just the fact that he had daddy issues and that's why he became Rewire, that was a little, whack to me in the old series. But having the mystery of who this Rewire is, and then revealing it that it is who it is, it's like, oh, that's again time travel, a nice little way to work around the fact that he died at one point and now he's alive again. And
well, I think it's implied, they get more to it in the story that Rewire, like Davis Dust did. This is after everything. This is after the apocalypse. And it's, again, I like the character of Rewire, but just like I said, his design is just... And this is coming from a guy who likes some of the costumes that came out in the 1990s DC comics, so take it with a grain of salt, is all I'm saying. Okay, look, in the days of Tony Silas and all those guys that were on the Kyle Higgins, DCAU, BT, Batman the Animated Series, not Batman Beyond run, Rewire was drawn differently then. He was drawn thinner, slimmer, smaller, because Davis Dusk was a smaller person than Terry is. So they had to work on the suit here for Rewire and the design. They had to change it up just a little bit. It's still the basic Rewire design, but because of who's in the suit,
the framework of the body must look different because it's not the same friggin' guy. It's not the original Davis Dusk. And I will say, right now, looking through these action shots of the two of them, Tim and Terry fighting, because I'm just going to say it's Terry McGinnis, folks, in the Rewire suit. If you haven't read this series by now, it's 2 years old. Read it. It's good.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. It's 2 years old. I could see if it was 2 days old, sure, but it's 2 years old at this point. I just love the action shots. I love the art here. I think it's so great with the electricity, with Batman, with Rewire, all of that stuff. Absolutely love it.
Although I do have to correct you in one thing, Mike. This came out in the last 6 or 7, 8 months. Like, this finished off the tail end of last year.
Still,
I know, Nick.
It's more than 6 months old. Get over it.
Okay, I'm just saying. Anyway, back to the story. So I do love the first where we see, like, Commissioner Gordon V2, and they go to that single page shot of Tim in kind of free fall in the suit over Gotham, and I like the fact that we know the apocalypse happened,
right?
But it doesn't look like the apocalypse happened. Like, they just kind of ignore. They just
it kind of does.
It just, you wouldn't know from looking in the city shots because, like, Gotham is so well preserved.
Well, because Gotham was the only place that was preserved because of the veil. That was the only place that Brother Eye could not
we know of.
Yeah, but you look at the very first story arc that we talked about, the first two, Brave New Worlds and City of Yesterday. Gotham wasn't the Neo Gotham that we know from the animated series, but it wasn't as bad as what Metropolis ended up being like in this series.
I'm just saying, for all we know, this is the last city. I'm just saying that we know of, because they haven't really explored, even in the Rebirth series, which I have read. They've never really gone beyond Gotham, so we literally don't know. I mean, Tokyo could be. Maybe something happened. You have no idea what's going on. But anyway, I mean, Tim goes to investigate this break-in. It's Star Labs. It's Rewire. He's got this new He picks up this battery that looks about the size of a micro SD card for all intents and purposes, that he plugs into his vest, and he's like, better. Because he's powering up, and then him and Tim get into it.
Yep.
And I like how the fact that he's coursing with so much power that, there's all this energy, electricity crackling off his body, and it's like enhancing his strikes, and it's kind of getting through the suit. And, did I hear you say Rewire? Barbara says. He's like, yeah, brief me. Tangled with Terry a couple of years ago, real name Davis does. So we do get that brief interaction.
It is connected. It does, again, Jurgens doesn't just say, oh, Rewire is something, of course the guy's going to make, the connection to the original debut of the character,
Yeah.
I mean, that just makes sense to do so.
Yeah. But I do like the fact that, we get that in like 2 panels. We're reintroduced to him. We get that little bit of backstory, and we're off to the races so we can keep pushing forward.
Mm-hmm.
And Rewire, he says, that Taylor was dirty, but he was alive when he left him. Drake's just like, yeah, nuts to that. And he's like, let's go visit Commissioner Gordon and convince her. And I love the fact that, they go at it. They're pretty evenly matched, and then Rewire basically electrifies the top of this building or crane. I couldn't tell for certain from the art, and he tags the suit, and essentially it goes down.
Yeah, and this was my first kind of realization that. And they explain it later in issue 13 and 14, and we'll get to that in a minute. But when the suit went down, just complete shutdown, no nothing, no whatever, and it wasn't being destroyed, it was something to where I'm like, how many other people in the world have a psychic connection to the Batman Beyond suit besides Bruce Wayne, Terry McGinnis, and now Tim Drake? Obviously, Bruce is dead, so we're led to assume that he's dead, unless he did. Well, they wouldn't have killed him in Future's End, would they? I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, but it's one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, psychic link. It must be like I didn't know that it was Terry, but I kind of had a hint of like it could be Terry.
Yeah, you're just like, hey, wait a second.
Yeah.
It's like that one where you do like that double point at your friend, just like that guy.
Yeah. Or it's one of those things where it's, you pull a Sesame Street. One of these things just doesn't belong here.
Pretty much. So I'm just going to close that window because it's not working for me. Move on.
Okay, so we get closer to the end and we realize that Rewire has a boss.
Yeah,
he's got
this shadowy somebody.
He's got somebody pulling his strings, and that's kind of how issue 12 ends. After reading issue 12 the first time and this time reading it for this, I'm not so mad at the cover anymore now that I know it was a flashback moment to be able to have old Bruce back. Issue 12, I did enjoy it. I think it's great. I would probably give it a 3.5. There's a couple of things with the art, but it's not major things. Like it's not like when I first started reading this series back in the Brave New Worlds arc, where the action shot changes of explosions and things, and the art style changed completely to show that. It's not like that. I don't know, just some of the stuff. But overall, the art is great. The story is moving along fantastically. What about you?
Yeah, I'd give it probably 3.5, like that. Like I like Philip Tan's art. Don't get me wrong. I did recognize it. It took me a moment to find the credits in that the first time I read through this. And again, it's like we spoke the first and second times or the first two episodes that we spoke about on this series, talking about this 13 brings back Bernard Chang through the rest of the series. Phil,
actually, it brings him to 13 to 15 because somebody else is on 16. But anyway.
Right. But yeah, it brings back Bernard Chang to kind of finish off the story more or less, and we're get back to that.
Yeah.
His style, and I like Philip Tan's art and other stuff. It's just that first issue, it was kind of weak for me. That kind of faux animated style that he was doing.
Yeah. With like I said, with the stuff with the Batcave, the stuff with Bruce and Ace, and the stuff actually in the Batcave, in the flashback, the fact that it's a flashback and it's not the current version of the Batcave that we've known for the last two story arcs, I don't mind that it was animated series-ish, because that, to me, if DC Comics is going to do Batman Beyond stuff, it needs to have hints and notes and callbacks and homages to the animated series, because without the animated series, we wouldn't have had any of these damn comics. So I'm not saying that the artists need to consistently draw Bruce Timm style art. They can do whatever they want. They can do whatever style they want, as long as I see a good establishing shot of the Batmobile, as long as I see various, maneuvers in the suit, as long as I see the characters I've known from the series. And again, like I said earlier, if somebody like Dan Jurgens or Kyle Higgins did it, he introduced a new villain, and that's fine. That's all well, good, and great. And I think Rewire in the initial run fit very well into the story, and I think Rewire here takes it up. Regardless of how we feel about the suit itself, the character of who is under the Rewire suit is what made this story matter to me.
Oh yeah, no, but I'm just saying it's not. I only take off, like I said, 1.5. Yeah, like that, just because it's that jarring. Bernard Chang, Phil Tan, Bernard Chang.
Yeah.
So we get into it, and I like the first page here is, after being, uber tasered by Rewire, Drake is sinking into the water off the docks of Gotham, and we get these kind of like quick kind of flashbacks to, you know, some of the events from like Earth's End. You know, you see like the Teen Titans and Drake bartending, and how he fell in love with the female Firestorm that appeared in that series.
Yeah.
You know, and Barbara basically takes over and uses a. She realizes the suit has an oxygen system and uses his surge to kind of wake him up. And I do like, I like the image of the vents, like the rebreather mask, like kind of slotting into place over his mouth. Mm-hmm. You know, just the kind of the tech look of that. And you know, we get back after he gets back to the Batcave, and they kind of go over, you know, how did Rewire shut the suit down? And Barbara's even saying, maybe I should get back to my real job, which I love that line. It's like, is this not your real job?
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of it made me think of, you know, who's the mask, Batman or Bruce Wayne?
Yep.
Sort of thing.
Yeah. What I loved about the opening here is, up to the point where they get back to the cave, what I loved about that opening is it reminded me of just like how Kyle wrote, and obviously this is Dan Jurgens, not Kyle Higgins in this series, but how Kyle wrote issue number 29 of the New 52 Nightwing series, where in this, you know, Tim's life is flashing before his eyes in the beginning of this issue, and he's giving us highlights, like you said. It reminds me so much of the way Kyle wrote that in Nightwing, where it's like, you know, grew up in the circus, became Robin, eventually became Nightwing, went to, you know, I just absolutely love that. I think that's great. And, you know, getting to where we are now in the cave, what I love about this is Tim's like, a Red Robin suit, one of my old suits displayed as a memoriam? I just love that.
Yeah, and again, this goes back to the whole Back to the Future time travel thing that I mentioned earlier, where we know in the previous timeline before Terry went back and changed the events, and it still happened in this timeline, that something happened, that Drake disappeared.
Yeah.
You know, and it's different in the new time, in the revised timeline now, that, you know, Drake still disappeared, but we don't know whether it was the same deal as that he just stepped aside and he wanted to live his life that we saw in Earth's End. So, and Barbara starts to tell him, and that's what I like about the rest of this issue, is Barbara is reminiscing of Terry's investigation into the disappearance of Drake. Mm-hmm. And we get another callback to the series, Terminal, who is one of the Jokers. And I like how a lot of the villains, like I remember reading an interview with Bruce Timm, just a quick tangent, about the animated series, that they were not going to use any of the original, like, Batman TAS villains, except for, you know...
Mr. Freeze and the Joker.
Mr. Freeze and the Joker, I mean, especially Mr. Freeze, like, that episode is almost as good as Heart of Ice, in my opinion, just because you feel for Victor Freeze in that. Yeah. And I do like how Ink was Dash a Catwoman on a big pile of Clayface. Terminal was, you know, he was the Joker, but there's a lot of shades of Two-Face thrown in. You know, such like that. And even Spellbinder is kind of the Mad Hatter and the Riddler sort of mix. You know, and I did like that about, you know, Terminal here, which he's just like, he's like Two-Face by way of a Joker, but he's not. It's not like the Joker is like, hey, boys and girls, who's ready for some laughs? You know, split his sides. You know, that sort of Joker thing. Which I love that version of the Jokers versus, you know, the terrorist gang that we got in this series. But you see Batman, you know, and this version, or at least in this instance of Terminal, is very much Penguin as well. You know, because he's essentially running his version of the Iceberg Lounge. Yeah. So, you know, Batman interrogates him for
the location of the Joker because he thinks that. So this is Terry. This is the flashback. This is Barbara going through her memories, and Terry interrogates Terminal to get the location of the Joker because he believes the Joker is still alive. We get, a shot of the Joker in a casket, and of course, it's not the damn Joker. It's one of the Jokers that's, just, whatever. And then we cut back to Tim, and, Tim is Batman, and then Terry is Rewire, and, like I said, I'm just loving this. I think this is just so cool and fun, and the way that the artists, Bernard Chang and the rest of the team, plus Dan Jurgens, the way that this is paced out and written, if you look at these panels, where
the top half is the flashback and the bottom half is current,
right? And they constantly intermingle with it because the way I view them is through the Comixology guided view. So I was right. The Joker is alive. Impossible. And then we go back to the next panel that I see is Rewire, blocking Batman's shot, thing, and it just goes back and forth. And I just love the juxtaposition of all of that. I think that's great because the two storylines mimic each other. Because Terry as Batman was initially looking for Tim Drake, Red Robin, whereas Tim Drake as Batman was looking for Terry as Rewire, even though they have yet to find out that it is actually Terry McGinnis in the Rewire suit.
Yeah, and it's he's looking for Rewire versus Terry looking for the Joker.
Right.
It's like you said, it's juxtaposed with they're looking in the same funeral home. Mm-hmm. Which I love, and I love the art. Terry walks in, there's the coffins and everything's hunky dory, and Tim walks in, it's in a shambles and it's a wreck.
Yep.
And I do like, just looking at the flashback, how Terry takes on this gang of Jokers, and I believe the term is owns them. Mm-hmm. And I do love, again, going back, I can hear Kevin Conroy's voice in that one panel as Bruce is sitting there with rubbing his hands together, and he's got the smile on his face. It's you have a lot to learn.
Yep.
But in the back of his head, it's this boy's got game,
Yep.
And again, we go back to the modern day site with the fight between Rewire and Drake, and you see him, he's owning Batman, and he shuts down the suit again, and even Barbara's how does he do that? And we go back to the flashback, you see Terry just look, I just wanted to, he's just trying to earn some gravy points in Bruce's eyes, and you see him locking up the suit that eventually Barbara and Tim look at in this series, and she does the same thing again, we gotta let this go.
Well, yeah, and again, it's juxtaposed next to each other where the two timelines are happening at the same time, because like you said, in one part of it in the flashback, Bruce is locking up the Red Robin suit, and so is Barbara. And I love how that this is played out and how this is told. I think it's very cool. I think it's very unique. Buddy of mine on Facebook, Ivo Santos, I had posted. It's coming up later. It's the very last issue that we'll talk about, but it's basically Rewire holding up Batman like a dead fish, and Ivo said something about the fact of this is Batman Beyond. It's almost as bad as Frankencastle, and I'm sitting here defending the series. I'm like, no, it's cool, it's good, it's good storytelling, and it's only one part. It's not, they're not replacing Terry McGinnis completely. And he's like, but it should the only people that should be Batman besides Bruce Wayne is Grayson and McGinnis. And I said, I agree with you, but if you go and read this story, you'll find out that it's much more than what you're thinking just by one image. And we so getting back to issue 13 here.
I do like how in the image of Tim and Tim's lamenting, it's almost like Brother Eye's still messing with me, In that shot in the background, I love the fact they include the giant penny and the T-Rex, which are two elements of the Batcave, and you even see in the beginning of last issue the giant Joker playing card. If there are three things besides the Bat computer and the Batmobile that need to be in the Batcave, it's the card, the penny, and the Rex. And so Barbara's going off to go beep Commissioner Gordon again, and we go to this bombed out construction site where Rewire's the attack took a luck out of him, and he like shreds.
He basically pulls a Tony Stark, folks.
Yeah, he's got an arc reactor or some sort of power source implanted in his chest.
Yeah,
and it's revealed that Spellbinder is behind all this, and it's bum 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 Terry McGinnis in the suit.
Terry Rewired, yep.
Yeah, and it's like, Batman has always done his best to persecute you, even to the point of killing your predecessor, thus establishing that Davis Dusk is most likely dead, although, to quote Hawkgirl in the Justice League animated finale, is like, believe half of what you hear and none of what, or half of what you see and none of what you hear, no body, no death.
But again, like I said before, with Davis Dusk, all due respect to Kyle Higgins and his writing, I absolutely love it. That character, the main reason why he wanted power was because he wanted to overcome his father's shortcomings. And it just didn't... In the end, Rewire's reveal of, in the Kyle Higgins series didn't really matter to me. I was having much more fun reading that series when I didn't know who Rewire was, and we had all these Bat clones that looked like all the animated series, the classic animated series characters in the very beginning of that original 2.0 series. And here, Rewire, it matters a hell of a lot more than what it did back then.
Yeah. And I do like, it's something that I'll come back to this scene once we get into the next issue. But yeah, it's that final full page reveal. It's Spellbinder and Terry McGinnis, and Terry Rewired next issue.
Yep.
Now, as we move into the next one here.
Well, before we do, what are you going to rate 13?
13, I'm giving it a solid 4. I do, especially for that whole juxtaposing of the flashback with the concurrent storyline, that it's happening in the same location in two different time periods. It's a trope from comics that I've always enjoyed.
Yeah. As long as it's pulled off well, and it is pulled off well in issue 13, so I'm also going to give it a 4. So getting into 14 here, we start off with Tim and Matt running.
In the forests outside Gotham City.
Yeah. And
it's basically they're more like, with this conversation, they're talking about, like, it's weird, and it's I miss Terry so much, and they're bonding much more fully. Like, I wouldn't say they're brothers, but they're definitely bros.
Yeah, they're friends. I mean, yeah. and again, Tim has always been a part of the Bat family, but he's never felt like, and we'll get to this much later along, I absolutely love. But Tim and Matt, just absolutely awesome how that goes. We go over to this bridge where it's back to the flashback. This is where Terry, as Batman, realizes, because he's fighting Shriek, that hey, I should, because Matt is telling Tim about what happened and how he found out that his brother was Batman.
Yeah.
And I really love the art with the flashback here with Shriek, because they, that was one of the cool things about Batman Beyond. The very first Shriek episode, there was a whole, 3 or 4 minute scene with no sound whatsoever, nothing but echoes, because of Shriek's powers and showing that off. And I think that they show that off again here very well in the comic version, as well as what they did in the original animated series.
Yeah. And I do like, of all the villains, like Shriek, not just for his powers and what he could do, but just the design of his suit is very anime influenced, I think.
Yeah.
Just with the giant oversized paws and the suit. And I kind of, and just as a design thing, I kind of like that design of his paws, which reminds me of one of my favorite aliens from the Ben 10 series, Cannonbolt, where he's just got these big wide paws and kind of the lumbering gentle giant sort of thing I always loved. And, we go, Matt is injured in this battle because you see Terry pulling him out from underneath this rubble, and he's kind of jacked up pretty bad.
Yeah, and you basically have a reversal of the Jason Todd shot.
Yeah. It's very much the Jason Todd, death in the family.
Yep.
And I like how they're running, and he's taking him, back to Wayne Manor, which is outside. I don't know if it was outside of the Vale or not in the story. I mean, it really doesn't matter, but clearly Wayne Manor survived the apocalypse, which, of course, it did, because Batman.
It's Wayne Manor.
Yeah, it's Wayne. And we go back to the Matt in the hospital, and Terry's laying, I would say, a Peter Parker level guilt trip on himself.
He is, but at least Terry did not make a deal with the devil.
I don't know what you're talking about, Mike.
That did happen, JT.
Spider-Man would never do that.
Yes, he would, and yes, he did.
God, I felt like Linkara there for a second. His name. But yeah, it's basically he reveals to Matt
that he is Batman.
Yeah. And he takes his coat and kind of morphs into the costume,
and that's when the alarms start hitting and the brother eye thing starts happening.
Yeah,
and
it's literally the 5 seconds before the apocalypse starts.
Yeah, and we go back to Wayne Manor with Tim and Matt, and he's walking him through Wayne Manor, and Tim is not Tim. Matt is basically saying that hey, Terry disappeared and. Whatever else, and we go over to the clock. And
I like the fact that they have the clock entrance, and the panel previous to that, they've got like the furniture with the sheets draped over it, which is something you saw now and again whenever they went to the manor and not just the Batcave in the animated series. Yep. And Matt's literally got the holy shit.
Yep.
Kind of look in his eyes, and I like the. I do like the established shot of the Batcave and how it looks all kind of high tech and all that. And this again, nitpicky for me. Those are the weakest designed Batmobiles I have ever seen.
They look okay, but they're not homaging anything. Like one of them looks like a Lamborghini, the other one looks like a Volkswagen something, or the other one looks like a Camaro. I mean, it's like. I gotta say, yeah, you're right. Those are 5 of the sloppiest Batmobiles ever.
I mean, the one on the left kind of looks like a Transformer from like War for Cybertron, but
no, I would say it kind of looks like
toys, anyhow.
Yeah, it kind of looks like Mudflap and Skids, the ice cream truck, a little bit. But anyway, we go back.
They don't look like they're that racist.
Here we go. So we go back to the whole story. Barbara and what?
Sorry, I was just saying. Barbara looks like he's like, boy, you out of your damn mind.
Yep.
And it's like we owe it to both Matt and Terry. Bringing them into the family. Yep. And I love that the next few pages we see what happened to
Terry.
Doug. Well, to Rewire during. The Terry rewired during the onset of the apocalypse, which I think it's kind of juxtaposing, like, Rewire probably died fighting the Borgs.
Yeah. And
then at some point, but obviously this is, Spellbinder using his techno mojo to bamboozle Terry, so it would. Instead of Rewire, we should be seeing Batman fighting the Borgs and being collapsed under this weight, and then Spellbinder finding him and doing his thing, and then it's basically Rewire Rewire's.
It's basically Terry and Mrs. whatever her name is, who is actually Spellbinder, basically telling him, "Hey, look, this happened. Everyone's after you. Everyone's against you. You can't even live anymore. You have to have these batteries in order for you to even live." Again, it's a whole Iron Man type of story where if you don't have this battery, you're going to die. And that's kind of how the issue ends with, next confrontation where Batman has to die.
Yeah. I do like in one of the last panels is he hates you. He wants to kill you. You see how, let's call her Mrs. Binder's face kind of warps. Yep. And then, it's kind of like in any sort of animated series or movie see where one character is like hidden and reality isn't what we see, how their true visage pops in and out like that. I love the idea that this is Spellbinder and this is the story that he's told to bamboozle Terry.
Mm-hmm.
But part of me also kind of wants to see what he actually did, like how he actually found Terry, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is because of the time paradox of Terry going back to the past and Tim getting flung into the future, because of how Tim changed everything, that even though the original Terry died, and they kind of explain this at the end here, coming up in issue 16 after we talk about the next issue, but they kind of explain it. It's a whole time travel thing, but issue 14, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. The art is great. The writing is amazing. The story continues to excel. I got tired of Spellbinder and I've always gotten tired of Spellbinder very easily because I'm not his biggest fan whatsoever. Even in the animated series, I'm just not. I get tired of the old lady bit.
She's like, you're a supervillain. No, I'm just an old lady.
Yeah.
That sort of trope in comics, movies, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I usually find it very entertaining, but here it's just kind of meh. So,
yeah.
I do like the beginning of the number 15 here.
Well, wait a second. So 14, what are you going to give 14?
I'm going to give it it's a 3.5 for me. Like I said, it's just
yeah.
It's not that I didn't like the whole flashbacks with Terry Wire and Spellbinder,
Yeah.
but it's still it moves the story forward. It's increasing the stakes. It's propelling everything. It's just kind of meh.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same way, and I'm only going to give it a 3. Like I said, the old lady bit kind of got on my nerves a bit, but the rest of it I thought was great. So we've got Wired for Death Part 4 in issue 15 here, and we pretty much pick up where we left off. Kind of where Tim and Barbara are fighting.
There's a blackout and a pharmacy's getting robbed.
Yeah, so they're trying to capture these criminals and all of that. And the blackouts, we find out as we go along here, are obviously caused by Rewire. But what I absolutely love about this issue is that it's Matt in the fucking cave.
Yeah.
I love that.
He's like feet up on the back computer.
Yeah, because again, the last time, okay, when Terry's brother Matt has been in the comics, it's always usually been
the annoying little brother.
Terry's annoying little brother thing. The same thing in the original animated series for Batman Beyond. That's what Terry was. That's what Matt was, and that's what he was supposed to be. Matt was never supposed to, even though he is the second son. Look, I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what continuity says. This is the only time you'll ever hear me say that I don't care about continuity. Damian Wayne does not exist in my mind when it comes to this entirety of this timeline whatsoever. Bruce did not screw Talia and make that kid. The only kids that Bruce Wayne has ever had is Terry and Matt McGinnis.
Well, there's an argument to be made that Batman didn't really willingly sleep with Talia, but that's neither.
Anyway, that's a discussion for another day. But
yeah.
But I'm saying,
in the views of the revised timeline, Damian did exist. We don't know what happened to him. He's never brought up at all in this timeline because this is the future of the New 52.
Yeah.
So, but I do like if you go back to the last panel before we move to Matt in the Batcave, and Barbara mentions, Matt mentions that there's more looters in the east side of Aparo Park, which is a nod to Jim Aparo, who is one of my all-time favorite Batman artists.
Awesome.
And I was just pointing at the screen as I'm reading it. He's just he said the thing.
Yeah.
And we go and Rewire and Spellbinder are watching, and they attack Barbara on the bridge. And I love that shot of, you see Barbara's still got a lot of Batgirl in her, and she just boots, like, she took Rewire's head off, well, at least his helmet, and then we get like that.
I love the thing where her car is flipped over and Rewire is coming up behind the car thing where he's like, got her. Yeah, think again.
Yeah.
You know, that's classic Barb.
And I like, that's the straight up classic Batgirl. And then, like, she boots his head off, and we get that kind of trademark red and white, like, emphasis panel. And it's, holy crap, Terry McGinnis alive? And I do like that, where she turns around, Spellbinder. I wouldn't know who that is, young lady. I'm Mrs. Shelby. You know, I just kind of love that. And the fact that they do, like, Chang and the letterer kind of work together. Like, he draws, like, the weird little speech balloons, which kind of indicate the voice is different, kind of like how they had, like, the altered voice work in the animated series. And he's like, I'm Mrs. Shelby, and Rewire's, I won't let you hurt her, and it tases Barbara. And we see,
Tim.
Yeah, I was going to say Terry for a second.
No, it's Tim. Terry's Rewire.
Great. Drake's finished in Aparo Park, and Matt says the commissioner's car is found on the bridge. She's gone. Her gun's at the scene, and it's like, there's scorched and burn marks that look like her car was attacked by electricity. Rewire.
Yep, and of course it's always going to be a trap, and they use a Red Robin signal.
Yeah. I like that. I do like the one where Drake takes off, and it's like straight out of the animated series with like the wings and everything. Yeah. Just straight up like that. And it's like, where do we even start to look? We won't have to. He's using her to get to me. How do you know? I've got an idea.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, and don't get me wrong, it's a horrible movie, but I thought of the Robin signal from Batman and Robin when I saw that. Except when he goes there, it's not Uma Thurman in a really bad Poison Ivy cosplay. And he goes out to Blackgate Prison, where you see the nature has kind of reclaimed the island, because, there's vegetation growing all over the place, and the prison's definitely falling apart, post-apocalypse. And then I love how Matt kind of has a brown pants moment where the requisite bats in the Bat Cave. He's like, holy shit!
This place has bats. What did you expect? It isn't called the Butterfly Cave. Yeah, and then Barbara. Yeah, and then Barbara comes up behind Tim and basically whops him in the back, and because she's brainwashed by Spellbinder. And what I love is when she attacks him and he subdues her, Rewire comes in, electrocutes him, and we get to the next panel. Hey there, Banana Man. I was wondering when you'd show. All I can think of is there's a banana in that tailpipe. Yeah. Okay, stop. So, we got...
I love the next page after that where you see Drake going at Terry, and he's kind of going back to his... Red Robin roots with the bow staff. He's got this piece of rebar, and he just
because this is Terry as Rewire. Terry has the psychic connection to the suit, and he can explode all the stuff, and he assumes that Tim is now defenseless. And as you said, Rewire even says, Matt says, Tim, your suit's power readings are at 0. You're powerless. Hardly. I trained for years. Did the job without fancy weapons. Nothing but basics. And he pulls up this giant thing and smacks Rewire. And I absolutely love the panel. Again, this has happened twice now, where basically it's Rock'em Sock'em Batman because Tim knocked his block off. But I love how Comixology zooms out and gives you the full panel, and then obviously zooms in on the various parts of it where we see again that Terry is, Rewire, and we see because Matt's watching this through Tim's visual link, and and Tim's like, his face, and it goes to Matt. It can't be Terry. My brother's alive for real.
Yeah, and I know at this point Tim is like worn down, and his braids probably like 3/4 tapioca. And he's like, I was with you. You died right in front of me. But again, that was in
the other timeline that's no longer around. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I like that. My name isn't McGinnis, right, Mrs. Shelby? Quite so. This is Davis Dusk, a kindly young man who saved me. And I'm just kind of like, I love when, like, obviously he's busted, but he's still kind of got the high ground in this fight. So, and I like how Matt's, he's grown up a lot. He's not the annoying little putz. I got to do something or else the freak will make a puppet out of Tim too. And then, like I said before, like I wanted to see what happened with Terry. And they, again, to his credit, Bernard Chang recreates his panels from like where Rewire was rescued by Mrs. Shelby. And it's Batman, and he's like, thanks to his heroism, the cyborgs fell, and he was injured, and I rescued him, and kind of gave him that implant to kind of make, like, no, if this die, then he works as if this runs out of power, I die. So gives that constant, that constant need to feed sort of thing. Pardon me.
Yeah. And going back to Matt, Mr. Autopilot, call me Alfred. Can you take me where I want to go? The only thing I don't like about this page is that very first panel where he says, Mr. Autopilot, because the Batmobile does not look right in that panel. It just does not look right. And, we get this whole, thing, we know that Batman's costume will keep you alive, blah, 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 and everything else, and Matt's going to hurry, and gladly, sir, maximum speed. And then we get the panel where Alfred, the AI, says that, and it looks like the classic Batman Beyond Batmobile. And we get more of the fight with Terry and Tim, and Spellbinder's basically like, finish him, kill him, and this is, do what is necessary, my dear, kill him, and this is where it kind of ends. Issue 15 was really good. As this story is continuing, I'm absolutely loving it, because they're going to eventually, all bring it back around. Obviously, the villains are going to go down and whatever else, but issue 15 was pretty damn good, and I'm probably going to give it a 4 out of 5 for that. Oh, yeah,
I'm definitely giving it a 4. It's solid all around in terms of art and the story pacing. And I agree with you that the Batmobile didn't look like the Batmobile there, but you look at the size of the panel, and there's only so much you can do with everything else you had to have on the page. So it's a nitpick at best for me. But yeah, no, it's solid 4. And, we move into the final chapter.
Well, it's the final chapter for this series, but the story in this final chapter pretty much sets up Batman Beyond Rebirth.
Yeah.
Because that's the craziest... It's really the craziest thing, folks.
That's not helping.
Every time they've tried to incorporate Batman Beyond into the DC Universe proper, New 52, New 75, Rebirth, whatever the hell you want to call it, I always get worried because I always think that, this is a new series, it's not going to be... But Dan Jurgens is still writing Rebirth, so... and it is carrying over from this series. And like I said, as long as the story carries over... And as long as, as I already said before in this episode, as long as I get my homages and character things and whatever, I'm perfectly fine with it. And as I said on Facebook when I posted some of the images from these issues and these covers from this final Wired for Death story arc here, I am loving Dan Jurgens writing this series. I can't wait to get into Rebirth and see what's going on there. And in this final issue, issue 16, we get a full tilt. We get, an ending for for Tim Drake. We get, an ending, kind of a new beginning for Terry McGinnis, but, absolutely love that. And as I said before, even though I love issues 12, 13, and 15's cover, issue 16 cover, when I first saw that, I'm like, oh my God, that's just the best. For a Batman Beyond series, for the story that this series is told with Tim Drake as Batman Beyond, that's just the best cover ever.
I agree. That's the best cover. It's not my favorite cover, but right. I agree it is the best cover. It's a very classically styled homage. You get I think you get like the classic red bat symbol, because it changes all over the issues and between the different art styles. Like that first image of Terry holding Drake by the scruff of his neck, and it doesn't even, it barely looks like a bat. It just looks like a giant, almost V on his chest sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And this last issue we should mention, Bernard Chang stepped off. It's Stephen Thompson on art.
Yep. And I don't mind I love Bernard Chang stuff. I really do. He's done an amazing number of things with this series. After going through and reading, and I've mentioned this before, for the last 5 years here inside the Pullbag, folks, I read the story first, and then I go back and I look through the issue to see what kind of art things I like or don't like. So I essentially read through this twice, but I read the story first, noticing the art as I go along. And sometimes I notice an artist change. Sometimes I don't always look at the credits when I'm reading and things like that, but I did for this. And honestly, I don't mind the style change at all, because again, like I said, this is pretty much, as it says, Wired for Death epilogue. I mean, this is the final kind of story. This is the wrap up. And this isn't something where people will say, oh, well, it got wrapped up in a nice little bow. It kind of did, but it still left the story open, because eventually they're going to have to put Terry back in the suit. What I love here is Drake's dialogue, his internal monologue with himself. I absolutely love that. My name's Tim Drake. I'm Batman. The guy dangling me like a dead fish, that's Terry McGinnis, Rewire. Yeah. I love that.
Has no memory of being Batman before me. Not good.
Not good. And again, one of the reasons why I absolutely love this series, regardless of whether Tim Drake's a Red Robin, whether he's a Robin, just a regular old Robin, whether he's a Batman, it doesn't matter to me. I've always wanted DC to do a Tim Drake solo series outside of the Titans, because I'm not a fan of the Titans at all, any version of them. I always wanted a solo series with Tim Drake as the lead, and this series gave that to me, and I absolutely love it for that.
Oh, yeah. I did like that little inner monologue, and he's like, where's... You want him dead? No need. He can't hurt me anymore, Mrs. Shelby. And you see just Spellbinder's pushing the issue, and we see Terry, like, kill him. And Terry's like, no, I won't murder him. And you see that struggle. And Stephen Jackson's art, I do like it.
Stephen Thompson, not Jackson.
That's what I meant. I was thinking Lisa Jackson. She's the colorist on this issue. I do like the art design. Like it's a little more finely detailed. We get the red and black interior of the Batmobile, where Matt's getting the lowdown on Spellbinder from Alfred. I do like when that thing where Spellbinder's got his orb, and you must listen to me, Davis. Kill Batman now. And I just like the little effects of the swirling light patterns around the eye. It's little touches like that I love. And we see
what I love about Matt being in the Batmobile is we don't have much time. Floor it, Alf. I'm like, what's the computer going to do? Eat a cat for dinner?
Yeah. I know. It's just you could just imagine, Cyber Alfred there just rolling his eyes and very good, sir.
Yep.
Just
And any time, even from the very beginning of this series, whenever the Alfred AI was around, I always heard Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. as Alfred. Absolutely awesome. So the Batmobile breaks in, busts into the prison, and guns a-blazing, and
Matt's I'm your brother. Don't you recognize me?
Yeah, I don't quite like the up close look at Terry's face when Terry's like, Matt, who?
It looks like he's fighting a sneeze back.
It looks like he's going to start speaking in movie Japanese or Chinese, where he starts talking, but his mouth is not moving, like Wayne's World 2,
I do like that, but honestly, to me, it looked like he's like fighting a monstrous sneeze back. He's like, and then Drake gets up and he's like, I have had enough of you, and he just knocks, Spellbinder ass over tea kettle.
Yeah.
And then Spellbinder, has used his mojo to make Terry see Matt as this baby man bat.
Yeah, that was an awesome reference, though. I mean, come on. How often are we going to see him? I mean, yes, in the Kyle Higgins run, we had the whole thing of Kurt Langstrom coming back, and we had a whole man-bat arc in the Kyle Higgins run for Batman Beyond 2.0. But, like, seriously, how often are we going to get a Batman Beyond man-bat reference, really?
I mean, there was the Splicers episode, but he was man-bat.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was awesome. We see, Drake take out Mrs. Shelby and Terry start to break through. And I just like that shot. And I do not advocate violence against women. I don't. But
okay, I don't either. But
I know. I'm just saying, I love that shot of Barbara attacking Tim after he takes out Mrs. Shelby, and then he just straight pimp slaps Barbara away, like just straight backhands and everything.
Yeah.
And he takes out the
eye
with his staff, and you see Terry break through the programming, and Drake is just like, he is ready to
Terry comes out of his funk as Tim is consistently beating up on Spellbinder, and Terry hugs Matt and whatever else. And
for that, you have to pay. And it's like I said, I have had enough of you. And I was thinking of, if you've ever seen like Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, there's the scene where Captain Kirk kills Doc Emmett Brown. I mean, Christopher Lloyd as this Klingon commander is, I have had enough of you, and just just straight. That's like Rocky knocking out Clubber Lang, sort of like just getting all the frustrations out and everything. And you needed.
So we get Rewire is we get Terry is back. We get Spellbinder is eventually going to go to jail. And then we get the explanation of Tim and everything else and what happened with Terry, and basically saying that, hey, I was, and this is what I love about Tim Drake in this series, where he's, what's right, Matt's right, this isn't my world. In some ways it never was. Meaning, Bruce invited all the other Robins into his life. I kind of forced my way in. Maybe that's why I never felt like I belonged, why I felt more comfortable as a Titan. I've said this before, I had no aspirations of being Batman. That hasn't changed. And he basically gives Terry the suit, and, Tim leaves, and, Tim will be back at some point, I guess, but he's going off on his own adventure, and he and Matt kind of have, this nice touching moment. And as I said, I don't feel like this final part of the story is forced at all. I don't feel like Dan Jurgens felt like he needed to just grab a red ribbon and tie a bow on this, because the story is very emotional and very touching, and it's giving insight to Tim Drake as well as setting up Terry taking the mantle back.
Well, yeah. And you're right. Like, the emotions should run high here, and it should be emotional, because like I said, we had Matt and Tim bonding, like I said, becoming bros, and you have this thing here. It's like the classic cowboy movie Shane, in a way, where he runs up and he's like, don't go, I'm sorry, and he's like, it's okay, man, it's we're cool, and I'll be back. And
Yeah.
I love the line of, I enjoyed the older, more mature Tim Drake, and I enjoyed getting to know an all-new Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And he takes off on the bike, and I love the silhouette of Terry
putting on the suit,
and it's kind of like that scene in Mask of the Phantasm, like after Andrea's like broken up with Bruce, and he's finally slipped into the shadows. He's turned that corner, and that just Alfred turning around, or him turning around, Alfred just like, oh Jesus.
Yep, absolutely. The only thing I have a problem with when it comes to this, when they're at the end, where they're, where Matt's like, nah, he was Shui, but for the first time in a long time, and then it goes to the next panel, and it's Terry in the suit. Batman is back. Now, I love the background of this, because it's basically Terry coming up out of the cave by the waves on the cliff of Wayne Manor. The only problem I have with this final, and it's not really the final thing, we've got a little more to go here in issue 16, but my only problem here is how Thompson drew the eyes and the smile. It just doesn't look like Terry Batman. It looks like he looks like a friggin' bobblehead.
Yeah,
to me,
like the eye panels, like they're not slits. I can't complain about the eye, but he's just got this creepy, like it's almost like Batman is back.
Mm-hmm.
You would almost expect that laugh to be written in there, and we go to the epilogue, and I love the fact that, well, okay, the apocalypse happened, Brother Eye took over the world, stuff got messed up, and Tim Drake is driving down the last pristine highway in North America.
Yeah, and then he disappears again.
A disgrace to the name Joker. Why, in my day.
All right, so as we end, like you said, Tim is on the last pristine road in the world and whatever else, and there's a light that pops up.
He's going towards it. Now, my theory is one of two things on this. This is the time stream correcting itself, and, if the original
from Flashpoint, you mean?
Well, from him time traveling, because, like I said, with the wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff, where the original Terry went back and died, and Tim got his suit. Well, now Terry never went back in time and died, so it's a time paradox. It's the time stream correcting itself, or this ties into the greater narrative of DC Rebirth and how the Watchmen are futzing with the time stream and history.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's more of the thing of, like I said, with Flash, in the Flash series that happened with Rebirth about the whole time stream thing, like you were saying.
Like Flashpoint, but with DC Rebirth specifically, they mentioned in that one shot, and I mentioned this, I think in the first episode, when I talked about the time travel stuff, like Ozymandias and the Comedian and Dr. Manhattan, like the Watchmen, basically stole about 10 years of time from the DC universe, which tied into Flash going back in time and preventing Zoom from killing his mother and basically causing the New 52. But I think this is, if it's not the time stream correcting itself, it's some part of their plan in regards to what they're trying to accomplish, which motives being have not yet been sussed out by Bruce and Barry in their investigation. But yeah, I love this kind of the end question mark. It's not a neatly tied off. I mean, there are threads hanging still, but that's picked up in the Rebirth series. But yeah, I love how they ended it like this, and to be continued.
Yeah. Well, basically, like we said, we have Terry taking up the mantle again. So we know that Terry is we're going to have some sort of adventure with Terry McGinnis in Batman Beyond Rebirth. Now, next week, here in Batman Month, we are going to be talking about the first 3 issues of Batman Beyond Rebirth. The reason why I say we're going to be talking about the first 3 issues is because Rebirth for Batman Beyond has 2 number 1s. For some stupid reason. We've got the one shot.
Well, there's Batman Beyond Rebirth, and then there's Batman Beyond. So a lot of the series get a rebirth issue, which is kind of like a 0 issue or a minus.
Yeah. Well, they should have said that it's a number 0 or something instead of 2 number 1s. That's just a little nitpick on my part. But overall, the 2015 Dan Jurgens, Bernard Chang, Batman Beyond series, most of the time Bernard Chang, sometimes Stephen Thompson was in there, and like we said, Philip Tan was in there a couple of times as well as artist. But it's pretty much Jurgens and Chang for the most part. I just absolutely love this entire series. Again, it plays on everything to do with the classic animated series. We get ink, we get we get Rewire from Kyle Higgins' days, we get all this stuff. We get an amazing story where Terry is actually alive, but he's actually the villain. Just absolutely love it.
Yeah. I love all the little nods to Batman history, to greater comics history with the Jack Kirby stuff. They brought back, like I said, one of my favorite original villains from the series, Dr. Cuvier. I liked him. They did bring him back in the Batman Beyond animated comic book series that ran in the late 90s there, where he was still like the original Chimera with like the hawk head and the snake body and all that. He wasn't like the mass walking tumor that he became in the animated episode. And I just like that, but his original form where he's like the scientist with a nice suit and kind of smarmy. But yeah, there's here, there, and everything. Like they kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily cherry picked, but they used a lot of nods and references to.
They used a lot of nods and references to classic Batman Beyond stuff without it looking like it was fan wank.
Yeah, it's like, hey, remember this? Huh?
The way that Jurgens framed it was, okay, this, but you don't know. Again, like I'm saying, with Terry being this character from, if you read the Kyle Higgins 2.0 series, but you don't really know this character because you don't know the guy under the mask yet. Yeah. The same thing with Terminal, and a lot of the stuff that came from the cartoon series was kind of homaged here and just kind of guest starring, kind of a way to throw in. And again, like we said, with a couple of these issues here in this final Wired for Death story arc, is that they're juxtaposing the time of Terry as Batman and Tim as Batman, which is really, really well done. Yeah. Issue 16, I have to give issue 16 a 5 overall. The overall story arc itself, I'm probably going to give a 4.5, because there were a couple of things that overall that I just didn't really care for, but it's still overall an amazing story. So I'll give issue 16 a 5, and overall Wired for Death story, issue 12 to 16 on a whole, I'll give a 4.5. What about you?
I would give the series as a whole a 5. The arc I'm giving, with you, it's a 4.5. The half point I'm taking off is Steven's art in this last issue. It was okay, but it just kind of took me out of it that it wasn't Chang's art all the way to the end. The arc, like I said, the arc is 4.5. The series overall, from beginning to end, it is a solid 5. 4.5, 5 like that. Again, for all the references to the Batman Beyond animated series, the Kyle Higgins stuff, like I said, the Jack Kirby references, all that. It's a solid comic. I mean, a little up and down with the art, but it's a solid story. Yep,
absolutely. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here on the Pull Bag in this next part of Batman month here this year, 2017. Where can the people find you online, sir?
They can find me online sporadically on another podcast I do with our friend Ben Carver, Comics Connoisseurs, whenever we get around to recording that. You never know. And you can also find me on Twitter at JT from Saskatoon.
Absolutely. I am at TFG and Mike. You can follow at the Pullbag, at Geekcast Radio for all the other network updates. Join us next week when we will be talking about, as I said, the first technically 3 issues, but whatever. We're going to be talking about Batman Beyond Rebirth #1, and then the first 2 issues of the series proper for the Batman Beyond Rebirth series, so issues 1 and 2 for that. So that's what's coming up next week. After that, we've got Joe Reed is going to come back, and he and I are going to talk Batman and TMNT, and then I guess JT or somebody else will come back to help me with Batgirl 2009, which is the Stephanie Brown series. So that's what's coming up here on Batman Month inside the Pull Bag. Make your great escape into comics, and we will catch you next time.
You've just heard the latest episode of the Pull Bag, the GCRN's comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you're leaving the message for, and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. Send us an email feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.